Hello, welcome. So here we are in the online live book reading. Now, I just need to figure out how I can actually see your comments because Facebook has changed all the settings. So hello, I can see somebody coming in. Welcome, welcome. I'm just finding my way so that I can view your comments coming in. I used to be able to have that set up so I could see it. I can see more people coming in. Can somebody write and just let me know? Can I see comments coming in? Just say hello. Hello, hello. I figure you're probably writing, right? And it's looking like I can. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop in on my cell phone so I can actually, yeah, because Facebook has reconfigured the, like they do, right? Oh, okay, good. No, somebody has just, oh, good. Sally, get it. Wonderful. Okay, thank you. I can now easily see your comments. So if you've got questions and stuff, hi, Ellie. Wonderful to see you. All right, so this is my book reading. I'm going to share with you about I put my banner up for you, Open Me. So this is my book, Open Me, the true story of a magical journey from fear to freedom, my first book. My second book, Real and Wild You, Your Daring and Magical Inner Journey. So this one has become an international bestseller. And I'm going to share with you about my third book. This is what my third book looks like. Yeah, so that'll all make sense when I get to that point. So if you're joining in on the replay or you're just coming in now, just say hello and where you're coming in from. It's wonderful. Thank you for being here. And so firstly, the journey of writing. I hadn't actually planned to write a book. It was a dream. It was something that was there, but I wasn't actually going to do it. And then circumstances happened. It was, when sometimes things in our life just fall apart. And I was at that point. And it's in moments like that sometimes we just kind of get a good shake up and we wake up. And I felt really called to go on a spiritual journey. And so I did. And I didn't usually keep a journal, but this time I did. And that became my first book, Open Me. And what I did was I just sent it off to an editor, just like that. I thought, well, the story was pretty extraordinary. I mean, there I was, so it's autobiographical. But the book is written like a novel. And I was in, my life was enviable, honestly. Like I had the man, I had the business, like I had the money and the things, and what else could you want? But inside, something just wasn't right. Like I had created all this success around me, but there was just something missing. And when that began to unravel, it was, oh my God, life-changing, mind-blowing. And so I take you through that whole journey of living through all of that and the spiritual pilgrimage that I went on, and how in a moment of when you really don't know what to do, when there are so many varied opinions about what you should do with your life, what do you do? And everything's falling apart. And so what I did was I found a way to access my inner wisdom, and I listened to that. And it's like that quiet inner voice. You got to slow down and be still and listen to that. And that led me through the whole thing. And, talk about right now, the timing that we live in in this time in life, in this pandemic, and when things in many ways are falling apart. And we have so many varied opinions about what you should do and how things have to go. And what do? You find a way to quiet, slow yourself down, and listen to your inner truth. So that's my story in Open Me in the first book. And so that's right. I had said earlier, so if you've just come in on the replay or you're just joining us live, just say hello. Hello, Barbara, Nadia, Rebecca, Barry. Hey, wonderful to see you. Deborah, Ellie. Cool. So, as I said, I had just written this diary and I sent it off to an editor who was a friend. And I went, what the heck? Right? So take a risk, give it a go. And she came back and she's, kind of like patted me on the head and said, well, Leanne, I lovely story. And I think you should take writing lessons. And I thought, well, that's a good start as a writer, isn't it? And so I'm thinking, the last thing I want to do is spend the next couple of years studying at university how to write. And so I thought, I'll get a ghostwriter, right? So, not being one to be stopped for too long. Hey, Lois. So I found a couple of ghostwriters, let them read the manuscript, and the first one comes back and she says, Leanne, I can't be your ghostwriter. And I'm thinking, dang, all right, maybe the next one. And then she says, but I want you to know that your book has already made a difference with me. And I've decided to leave my husband, which is something I've been wanting to do for years and haven't had the courage. And we're sitting in a cafe and I'm like holding the spoon. And I just kind of stop and I'm thinking, I don't want to write a book that has women leave their husbands because the story isn't about that. And I just took a big gulp. And then I met with the second ghostwriter, hey, Delamay. And she said, Leanne, I can't be your ghostwriter. And I'm thinking, oh, man. And she said, now, I want you to know that your book's a page turner. And you have now inspired me to write my own book, which I've been wanting to write for some time. And I'm thinking, all right, so clearly the message in my book, it inspires people to take action where they haven't been. Like it wakes up something inside of them. I'm like, okay, there's a message in the book. And clearly the message had to come from me because nobody, it seemed, was available to write it. So I engaged a writing coach. Best thing, if you want to write a book, I would recommend contacting a writing coach. I had written blogs and posts, but that's not the same thing. Writing a novel. So she read my manuscript and she went, oh my God, I love your story. And I'm going to ask you to start from the beginning. And she took me through this process that actually developed my writing skills from exactly where they were, gave me exercises. And one of the things we did, which is what I'm doing now with my third book, which is what I'm reaching for, is that she had me create a mind map, which mapped out the story, like the flow of the story, because I had originally written it just like linear diary, right? Black and white. And, this woman who I engaged, she's a published author. She's been nominated for awards. And her name's Catherine Cooper, by the way. And she's a Canadian, but she lives in New Zealand. And this was just so incredibly helpful because what the process that I've done so far is I've mapped out all the events linearly in my story, and then crafted the story in a way that I want it to be told. So you don't necessarily just start at the beginning. And so my first book, Open Me. So the third book is going to be the sequel. And so this is the story that broke my life apart and had me following my inner wisdom like never before. Because I've always taught about intuition and personal development and awareness and consciousness expanding, but not to this extent and to this depth. And so this story ends up where, I mean, I won't give anything away if you haven't read it yet, but and also if you have read it, you might want to, if you feel like just writing any comments about it to let other people know. But it ends, you're kind of not knowing what the main character, myself, is going to do. You kind of have an idea, but it's left kind of whimsical and, just kind of wondering, right? But you're really in the presence of, deep consciousness thinking. And so my third book is going to start off kind of where that one ended up, but very radical and not at all like you'd be expecting. In fact, it's going to be kind of shocking where it starts. But my third book is going to tell the story of arriving in Canada and then going on the 12-month journey, the road trip that I went on. And hi, Kay. And just all the adventures of being a woman who does not like getting her hands dirty, who does not like figuring out mechanical kinds of things. And there I am driving a 3/4 ton pickup truck carrying another, God, I don't know how heavy the camper was on my back. So I was well over a ton. With no rear view mirror, and I'm driving that. So yeah, the adventures that I went on over 12 months with that, living in that, and then just the journeys of romance and love and how I negotiate that. So that's going to be my third. That's the third story. So now, let me see. So you can ask any questions if you want. Somebody asked earlier, how do you remember all the things that, that happened in the past to be able to write about them? And so keeping a journal is very helpful. I did go to a talk that Elizabeth Gilbert was at, and so she's the author of Eat, Pray, Love. And she said she didn't keep any kind of diary at all. So everybody is different. I'm just sharing my journey. So I did keep a diary, but not always. Particularly, I remind myself to write when emotions and feelings are strong, when there's a lot going on. And that way, now I can go back and revisit those moments, and I've got a little snippet written, and I just kind of imagine myself back in that moment again. And so the first book, in all totality, it took me 4.5 years to write, which I never expected. And it was when I first started writing it, so I wrote the first part like a diary, right? And then sent that to the editor. So that took me a couple of years, basically because I started writing it and then I would, this is too hard, this is too much, and I would stop. And then I would remind myself of all the other times I said I was going to start something and I didn't, and it would be like, get back up. And so I had to keep forcing myself to keep writing it. And then the 2.5 years was how long it took to actually produce the version that you're reading now with the writing coach. So the other thing is that I worked with 2 editors. So I remember a well-known published author advising me on that. And I always wondered why until I did it. So what happened was Katie, Catherine Cooper, so she's my writing coach, but she was also my first editor, my main editor. And so once she had gone through the book and I had got her feedback and I'd rewritten the stuff that, that she'd given me feedback on, she had a particular perspective on the story, and which was all well and good. And when I realized, okay, so I've done as much work as I can with Katie, I then gave it to the second editor. And she had a completely different style and a different take. And Katie brought very clear precision and kind of like black and whiteness about it. So with Katie, it was, Leanne, you got to be clear about the story you're writing. Because in your life, like when you're, like, because I can only talk about, autobiographical or memoir kinds of things. When you're writing about your life, there's so many things that are happening all at the same time. Right? There's so many relationships that are happening. You may have children. Like I had stepchildren then, and my relationship with them. And, you've got your relationship with your family. You've got your relationship with people at work, and romantic relationship, and, relationship with yourself and friends, and, and all these aspects. Well, you can't write about all of them as you're writing, because then it becomes too mixed up and muddled. Like, what's the story that you're telling? So Katie kept me on track as to what is the story that you're telling. And so there were a lot of chunks of the book that just got, edited out, because even though they were well and nice, and I might have liked their little spin, they didn't add to the story, the main story that I was telling. So Katie helped me keep it really streamlined. And then when I went to Sue, and so Sue is a New Zealander who lives in Canada. So I kind of like that combo. And so she added color to it. So she would say, Leanne, so when I'm going into this bed and breakfast place that you're talking about, she says, I want to know what color the curtains are and the bedding, and were there any towels on the bed when you walked in? And I want to know this person's name. And it was just, it was fantastic getting this other level of depth and color. So that helped me to, expand it in a very different way. So I highly recommend getting 2 editors and choosing your editors as well. So I went through quite a, I'm just scrolling here to see if there's any questions, because go ahead, ask them. And I interviewed several editors before I actually chose and found Sue, my second editor. And so just be really clear on the kind of editor that you are looking for. And so I knew I wanted an editor that, hi, Carol, hi, Barbara. And I wanted an editor who understood metaphysical happenings. So otherwise they just couldn't edit my book. Like they just would not be able to understand it. So, metaphysical understanding, and they had to have worked with memoirs or autobiographical books before. That was, and also too, that I kind of resonated with them. So, and then just in the interview process, it just becomes clear who you want to work with in that process. And hi, Sally. So are you going to be a writer's coach? No. No, it's, I'm happy to share this, but I'm clear about my passion in life. And that's transformation, which I'll talk about later. So my core work is as a coach, not as a writer. I'm happy to recommend, though, Katie, my writing coach, Catherine Cooper. If you want her details, please leave a note in the comments here, and I will get you her email address, and you can reach out to her when you're ready. Highly, highly recommend her. But so working with, that's right, writing books really has just been a way to expand the work that I do and give people also a taste of, I guess, the kind of person that I am, and the thinking process. Like in spite of all the level of insecurity and the extent and depth of sensitivity and intuitive work that I do, in spite of all of that, it doesn't stop me. Like I've accomplished what I've accomplished. I remember before I pressed the send button on my book, when it was send, I mean, like publish. I was sitting with a client of mine who'd been she being one of my coachees. So I have been coaching her for a number of years, and She's an executive and a woman quite well established and known in the business field in New Zealand. And I said, Eileen, I'm real nervous. People are going to find out, just how incredibly insecure I really am. And then will they want to work with me, or will that forever ruin all my credibility? And she looked at me and she laughed and she said, do you think that we don't know that already? Or she said something like that. She's Irish and she's got this beautiful sense of humor. She says, do you think that we don't know that already and how, woo woo you really are, and that is what we're attracted to? And it was like, wow, okay, because it really is quite exposing writing a book. And is there anything else you wanted to know about my third book? In doing this process here, it's very, very helpful writing everything out linearly. And then what I do with Katie is she just kind of asks me questions, and she's a real crafter of story. And she said, well, how about if you started off here? And then I'm thinking, wow, okay, so if we start the story here, so I'm actually starting the story not at the beginning. It's kind of, like it's going to be, I'm already in Canada and I'm already with my truck camper and things have happened. So that's where the story is going to start. And then I'm going to weave in all the things that happened to get me to that point into the story, in a way that it all makes sense, that it's all kind of crafted and you're like, wow, so bit by bit, the whole story becomes opened and it unravels for the reader as as you're reading the story. And Rebecca's got a question. Was there one thing that kept pushing you forward despite the prescribed obstacles? Yes. And I think that was my commitment to myself. So let me tell you that I have attempted to write a book 2 other times in the past. Never got written. I started, it was just too hard. I realized, it was just too much. And I didn't ask for help and go to coaches and like that. And what happened this time was I had come back from my spiritual pilgrimage and I was at the farmer's market and I just randomly met this woman, as you do, right? We're staring at all the gluten-free goodies that we want to eat. We end up having coffee. And for whatever reason, I start telling her about this book I want to write. I hadn't written it yet. And she said, you don't know who you're talking to, do you, Leanne? And I thought, that's an interesting thing to say. And turns out she was an American journalist trained in social media and worked with authors, helping them get their books launched. And she said, I'll help you, Leanne, if you want. Now, she was only in New Zealand for a short window of time. I mean, she only had like 3-4 weeks left. And it was in that moment. And I thought, okay, talking about writing a book is different from writing a book. Saying, oh yeah, I'm going to do that. And then actually I'm doing that. And I sat there and I could feel the heaviness of the commitment, And I thought, this is it. I'm either going to say yes to this woman, or I'm actually going to declare to myself, I'm not writing the book and all that entails. And I just kind of checked in with my heart. And I could so feel I wanted to write that book. And I could feel myself moved right now. Yeah, so I said yes. I said yes. And I knew that it wasn't going to be easy. I knew that I'd be facing some challenges along the way. I knew I'd want to give up. I knew I would have those thoughts that this is too much. And what if this forever proves that I'm a failure? There's so many other books written about this kind of thing. Who'd want another one? All those kinds of thoughts, I knew that they would come up. And I decided in that moment that I was going to go through them no matter what. And so every time I wanted to stop, I did not let myself roll over and press the snooze button. I instead threw back the covers and pushed myself out of bed and sit down and write. And so I did. Pretty much every day I wrote something during the 2.5 years. So remember, that's like finishing one draft and then, getting that off to Katie, that coming back and then doing the rewrites she suggests and, sending that off. And so there's several rounds of edits, which again, I had no idea. What, don't you just sit down and write and it just all comes out? Maybe you go through and check some spelling mistakes? No. My aunt and uncle are writers, and my uncle said that one of the best books he's written, and that he's won all these awards for it. He said it took him 8 years. He said, "Do you know how many times I went through that book, Leanne? And I would rewrite and I would edit and get feedback." So yeah, do not be discouraged. And Barbara said, definitely the heroine's journey. The world needs more woo-woo. At least I do. Yes. That's what's led me to you. Oh, mwah. Yeah. Well, woo-woo isn't woo-woo anymore. It's actually a thing. I think probably at some point there's going to be classes at university training people how to be woo-woo. Okay. So now I want to read you a little bit from my book, and ask me more questions. I'll answer that as well. And also just, so this is this is my scrubby copy that I've carried everywhere to workshops and courses. Just in case you see it's all marked out. So that's the story. And like the novel to read. This is a self-coaching guide, Real and Wild You. So this is filled with more stories, and some of them are expanded stories from Open Me. Some of them are more and different stories, and exercises to do. So I'll share with you a little bit more about that one as well. So here are a couple of reviews from Open Me that I wanted to share with you. And I found Leanne's story was told with a power that was somehow simple and pure. It had me glued to the pages to find out what would happen next, and left me feeling inspired to stay true to my own journey in a way that was so affirming. I just loved it. And another review. What a book. I couldn't put it down. Leanne, you took me on the journey with you, and 9 months later, I am still thinking about your journey and emboldened by your story in my own life. Thanks for getting the words out and onto paper. You are inspiring me every day to live a more authentic and heart-centered life. Namaste. All right. So I want to read you a little excerpt from my book. And I'm just wondering which part you would like to know about. Let me see. Do you want to know about an experience with a shaman? It's kind of a mystical story. Or do you want to know about planning to go to Malta, which was a metaphysical experience? Or The Night Alone in the Desert Canyon, which is a story of courage. So, yeah, just write in the comments either the shaman, Malta, or Desert Canyon. Shaman, Malta, or Desert Canyon. And let me know what you would like to hear. You're probably thinking, Leanne, tell me the story that you think would be the one. Ah, yes, I wondered. Okay, I've got Malta, shaman, Malta. All right, let's go with Malta. All right, another shaman. You're gonna have to buy the book. All right, well, we'll read the Malta one, and Yeah, and I'll check in because I want to read you a little bit about the Real and Wild You too. All right, here we go. And so just to give you a bit of background where we're, oh, in the desert, we got to vote for everything. Awesome. Shaman. Oh boy. More on the shaman. Metaphysical something. Okay. All right, all right. Well, now I'm torn. Anyway, just to give you either of the stories a little bit of background. So this is just after my life had fallen apart, and I've just felt guided to be on this spiritual pilgrimage, and I this is something I'd never done before. I'm not a tourist. I'm not a big traveler. I know, even though, like, I lived in New Zealand for 29 years, left Canada to go there, married a Kiwi. It doesn't mean that I like traveling and that I'm gonna, I love to be a tourist, since I don't. And so this was just really totally something that I'd never done before. And so here I was, and I'm staying at a bed and breakfast place, and I'm in Glastonbury, and I'm considering where I'm heading to next. A soft meow sounded at my door. When I opened it, Sammy came in and jumped on my bed. He had taken to sleeping with me every night. Even though I loved traveling on my own, sometimes in the evenings I felt lonely. So it was comforting to have another presence with me. I looked into Sammy's eyes. They partially closed as his purring grew louder, and I knew he felt the same way. I turned out the light and got into bed. But my mind was still wide awake as I scratched Sammy's head and reflected on the past 10 days. Day one at the conference seemed like a lifetime ago, and I felt sad that my 2 weeks in Glastonbury, a place where I had experienced so much magic, would soon be coming to an end. I hadn't yet decided where I was going to spend the following 2 weeks. I had been waiting for something to catch my attention, or for some divinely ordained meeting to guide me in the right direction. But nothing like that had happened. Early the next morning, I opened my computer. Lisa had replied to my email asking where she recommended I go. I was considering maybe Scotland or Ireland, but she didn't say either of them. Instead, she said, "I think you would love Malta." Malta? Why is she saying to go to Malta? I don't know anything about Malta. Her email said when she went there, she had had a powerful experience in a temple called Mnadra. The hairs on my arms stood on end. She said Malta had the oldest surviving temples in the world. Some of them were thought to be up to 10,000 years old. Now I was excited. Questions filled my mind, but something inside me told me I didn't really need to know anymore. I had already decided to go. I bought my ticket that morning. I was going to Malta. Later in the day, I began sharing with other people on the tour about my plans to go to Malta. Their responses were alarmingly mixed. I had expected everyone to say how fabulous it would be, but they didn't. Some said that it was an amazing place and I would love it, but most questioned my choice and told me that it was the worst time to visit, July and August being the hottest months of the year. My excitement vanished quickly. An image of the ticket in my purse came into my mind, and I began wondering if I could get a refund. Why is summer so bad? I love the heat. But I wondered if people's comments were indicating that I really should go somewhere else. Trying to lift my spirits again, I imagined what it would be like in Malta. I'd never been there, and I'd never seen pictures of it, so it was easy to fantasize about an exotic, romantic place where I could relax by the water and do nothing. What can go wrong with that? And besides, a bit more heat would be nice. But I was still feeling uneasy. Later that day, I went back to my room to prepare for dinner. As I pulled out some clothes from my suitcase, I felt a presence in the room. I turned. No one was there. I continued getting ready, but I could still feel it. Then in my peripheral vision, I saw a woman with long black hair, olive skin, and dark eyes. Her eyes weren't just dark in color. They were dark with anger, and that anger was directed at me. I felt it. I turned to look at her straight on, but I couldn't see her. Oh, I'm just imagining this, I told myself as chills went through me. I had seen apparitions before, but none had ever been so menacing. I shook my head to get her out of my thoughts and carried on getting ready. When I came home after dinner that night, Sammy wasn't there. He didn't come into my room all night, and sleep eluded me for hours as I tossed and turned. Over the next couple of days, the angry woman's spirit returned 2 more times, making it a total of 3 visits. I tried to ignore her, but the vision persisted. I tried asking her for what she wanted, but she wouldn't respond. She just stared at me with her angry eyes. Each time she stayed for about 5 minutes and then vanished. One evening, I was lying in bed writing my reflections for the day. Sammy was curled up by my feet. As my pen glided on the page, it occurred to me that the apparition of the angry woman came to me 3 times. That meant I needed to pay attention to her. Then all of a sudden it dawned on me. She started appearing right after I bought my ticket for Malta. She has something to do with my going there. Tingles ran down my spine. Maybe going there really isn't such a good idea. I put my pen down. What should I do? People are saying it's a bad time to go. Are these warning signs? A feeling of trepidation rose in my chest. It's not too late to change my ticket and go somewhere else. I considered my options. Part of the issue, I realized, was that I didn't want to leave Glastonbury. I wanted to keep getting up every morning, meeting my friends at the bus, and going on remarkable adventures to sacred sites. I wanted to come home to the bed and breakfast, crawl into my familiar bed with Sammy at my feet and sleep soundly. I didn't want to leave my comfortable new routine and go and face new challenges in an unknown place. I had just come from a broken marriage with all the challenges I could handle. I reminded myself that I hadn't come to Europe on a holiday. The purpose of my journey was to let go of my fears and follow my intuition. Going to Malta would allow me to do both. If I change my ticket now, I'll feel like I missed out on something important. I have to go. I gulped. I knew something was coming that was going to test me, but whatever it was, I was determined to hold on to the trust that it was meant to happen. With my decision made, I turned back to my journaling, a new state of alertness flowing through my veins. Right. That was that chapter. And by the way, of all the things that happened, my trip to Malta was probably, if that was the only thing that had happened, that would have made the whole trip worthwhile. So it's just a little teaser about the book. And what's our time? Yeah, I got time to read you about the shaman one too. All right. One morning, so I'm still in Glastonbury. One morning, as I was sharing breakfast with a couple of other lodgers, one of them asked, "Have you visited the goddess temple, Leanne?" "No," I said. What's that?" The temple, she said, was a place for women to meditate, to read, to offer healings, to share. I was intrigued, and I made a mental note to go there if I happened to pass it in my wanderings. Later that day, meandering through the exhibitors area at the conference, I overheard snippets of a conversation between some women. Their words blended with the buzz of sound in the hall, and I wasn't actually listening, but when one of them said, "Goddess temple," it caught my attention. And again, I reminded myself to go there if the opportunity arose. The next morning, I bumped into Lisa. "Good morning," she said. "Have you been to the goddess temple yet?" Okay, I am clearly meant to go there. Not only was this the third time I heard about it, as my psychic friend had said, pay attention to things that get mentioned 3 times. But this time it also came from Lisa. Right after that morning session, I set out to find the temple. I had an inkling it was down one of the little back lanes leading off of the main street, each of which opened up to a treasure chest of more boutique shops and cafes. I chose one of those alleyways and followed it into an open courtyard. My eyes took in a long queue of people leading up a set of stairs towards a doorway labeled Goddess Temple. I found it. What's happening up there? I asked someone in the queue. There's a shaman up there and he's offering healings for free. A man in the Goddess Temple? This must be a special occasion and he must be very good. My attention moved to my arms, which were still a bit tender. This was the perfect place to be, and the timing could not have been better. So just a little pause there, just letting you know that before I left New Zealand and in the breakup of my marriage, my arms, both of them had become so inflamed, like the whole socket, I was unable to lift my arms up at all. And so they were still very, very sore and sensitive. Okay, back. As my place in the queue got closer to the stairs, I noticed people leaving the front line, coming back down the stairs and walking away. Excuse me, I said to one of them, is the shaman finished? He's fully booked, she said. The temple is packed. There's no way anyone else is going to get to see him. I frowned. Darn. What an incredible opportunity, and now I'm going to miss it. More people left the queue. I could get some lunch. I'm hungry. I remained standing in the queue. It didn't feel right to leave. Why am I still waiting in line? What if I spend all this time just to be told what people are already telling me? Then I realized there was no reason to be anxious about wasting time. I had nowhere to be. Where do you feel like being right now? The answer I got was that it felt right to be exactly where I was, in the queue. So I stayed, and the anxiety left. The woman at the temple doorway was dressed in a flowing pink goddess gown, which fit her voluptuous figure perfectly. Her dark, brown, thick hair hung loosely around her shoulders, and she held a commanding air about her. She was beautiful. I looked down at my simple summer top and shorts, feeling a little frumpy. I'm sorry, the temple is full, I heard her say to the people in front of me. They turned around and headed back down the stairs. It didn't really matter to me that she was going to turn me away too. I was actually enjoying simply waiting in line, doing nothing. The goddess looked at me next. I'm sorry, the shaman is fully booked, she said. I smiled and said, that's okay. I just want to be in this lovely space. It didn't matter that I wouldn't have a healing with the shaman. There was no one left in the line in front of me. They had all given up and gone away. I poked my head inside the temple door. Inside was a large room, and it was packed. Some people were lucky to have chairs. Others were sitting on the floor or standing. Just as I was contemplating walking away, the goddess touched my shoulder and pointed to a corner of the room where 8 colorfully dressed, human-sized mannequins were arranged in a circle. That is the goddess circle, she said to me. You can sit inside there. I will ask the shaman if he can fit you in when he has finished, but I can't promise anything. My eyes lit up and my heart spilled over with appreciation. Thank you, I said, and as I made my way inside, I heard her turn away the people behind me. Negotiating my way around and over the sea of bodies, I reached the goddess circle. A mat had been placed on the floor in the middle. At least 4 people could have fit inside the circle, but I had the whole space to myself. I looked around the room. Everyone here was waiting for a healing. It would take hours. I looked at the clock, which said it was just after 1 in the afternoon. My stomach growled, and for a fleeting second I contemplated staying briefly and then leaving. But having come this far, having followed what felt right, having been offered a space in that room, I was committed to staying no matter what. What do I care how long it takes? I'm here to hang out in this healing energy until the right moment comes for me to leave. I laid down on the mat and closed my eyes. Slowly, I began to surrender my mind to the sounds of people breathing. And then I heard the loud breathing of the shaman and a whooshing sound followed by wailing. My eyes opened again. What is going on? What is he doing? What is that wailing? Is he making those sounds, or does he have some kind of instrument? I sat up to check if I could see anything, but I couldn't. A thick curtain covered the end of the room where the shaman was working. I looked around the room, but no one else appeared disturbed. They were all just waiting their turn. I lay back down, and the next thing I knew, I was startled by a gentle whispering in my ear. The shaman will see you now, the goddess said, smiling. I nodded and sat up. The temple was empty. The clock said it was just after 5. How has the time passed by without my noticing? I must have fallen asleep or something. But I didn't feel like I'd been sleeping. I felt like I'd been meditating. Looking down at the floor, I thought, I lay unmoving on my back on the hardwood floor for almost 4 hours? That was some meditation. You'll find him behind that curtain, she said, and then she walked away. I hadn't expected to have a healing, and I had never met or even seen a shaman before, so I was curious and excited. Behind the curtain, I found a big man in his early 40s with red hair and glasses. He was wearing a plain white t-shirt and sitting in a plastic chair next to a massage table. I didn't know what I was expecting, but I was surprised to find that he looked like an ordinary guy, no feathers or special headgear. What brought you here? He asked. I sighed. Where do I start? Should I tell him the whole story? I decided to keep it short. Taking a deep breath, I said the words that were there to say. Deep grief. Those 2 words covered everything I'd been through. I didn't even think to tell him about my arms, and he didn't ask any more questions. He indicated for me to lie down on the massage table, and he explained that he would stand about 1 meter away from my body to do his work. He made some opening prayers, calling in the divine help he needed, and began his work immediately. I closed my eyes and called in all of my divine help. Soon, the swooshing sound began. Ha! There it is! For a brief second, I almost opened my eyes to find out what was making that sound, but I didn't. I knew if I opened my eyes, my mind would begin to judge what he was doing and try to figure things out. I wanted to experience the healing and not be in my head about it. I kept my eyes shut. It didn't matter if I knew. Then he began to wail. It was that same deep, grieving sound I'd heard before, but even deeper. Such powerful tones came from his voice that they vibrated through my body. Tremors like waves moved through me, and at times I wanted to sob. The feelings were so strong. Then they subsided, and I felt relief. I didn't know what he was doing, but my body became completely still. I was almost unable to move. After a while, he said, "Okay, we're done." I sat up slowly and glanced at the clock. It was almost 6. How do you feel? He asked. Everything looked new and fresh, as if my eyes were seeing things for the first time. The healing had been very powerful. I feel emotionally raw and opened, but in a good way. I wasn't going to do any more healings, he said. I've been going non-stop since this morning, and I was feeling wiped out. But I am very grateful I did this one. I have never done a session like that before. What do you mean? The energies that worked through me were so powerful, they completely overtook my body, he said, smiling. I feel wholly replenished. My feet didn't touch the ground. As I walked back to the bed and breakfast, I went straight to my room and slept soundly. In the morning, when I woke, My arms were completely healed. So, okay, that's another story from Open Me. So there's lots more in there. And are you ready for me to say a little bit more about that one? Or you're still still digesting? I get it. I really, really get it. Yeah. It was very, very powerful. And I realized that miracles are waiting and ready and right there in every single moment of life. And all I needed to do was to just keep opening myself to them and to keep listening to where I felt guided to be. I mean, imagine if I had not waited in line and it was like, oh, what's the point? Everyone else is leaving. Imagine. And I didn't try and make that happen or anything. And this is what happens. Oh, that was perfect timing, wasn't it? As the angels say hello. And so my second book, this one is a self-coaching guide. And this one, like I said, is filled with more stories. But the chapters are actually lessons. And so I'll read the lessons so you can get a sense of the book. And then there's exercises in each of the chapters. So lesson 1, be honest with yourself. 2, receive an intuitive message. 3, distinguish your mind from your intuition. 4, leap and trust. 5, ask for and receive help. 6, do the work. Take responsibility and heal emotional wounds. 7, be with this is the journey. 8, open yourself and use your gifts. 9, communicate with nature. 10, work with body wisdom. 11, trust yourself in challenge and fear. 12, set yourself challenges to break through. 13, observe yourself and reflect deeply. 14, hold the vision and let go of the plan. 15, release all hopes, desires, dreams, and expectations. 16, heal self-compromise and reclaim your power. And the last one, 17, dare to love yourself. So the chapter I wanted to read you is lesson 15. Release all hopes, desires, dreams, and expectations. And so each of the lessons, it'll have, like I explain what that means. And then the question is, so what might stop you from doing that lesson? What are the benefits of doing that lesson? And then there's an exercise. So, lesson 15, release all hopes, desires, dreams, and expectations. What does that mean? These words have been used in various ways in different personal development practices and by different individuals. My suggestion for this lesson is that you put aside your current understanding of these words and allow yourself to open to the ways that they are being used here. Like trying on a new jacket and noticing how and where it fits. Let's explore the meanings of these words for this lesson. I hope things work out. I hope things get better. I hope they will like me. I hope that doesn't happen. Life is full of hopes, wanting things to go a particular way. Inherent in the experience of hope is the desire for something to be better than it is. This makes it challenging to be with circumstances in whatever form they arise, whether better, worse, unexpected, or indifferent, and can lead to suffering. Having desires and dreams is similar to having hope. Although having them isn't bad. In fact, our desires and dreams often guide us to create wonderful things. But when we cling to them, when we compare what is with what we think should be, when we expect particular outcomes and base our satisfaction on the fulfillment of our dreams and desires, this also leads to suffering. Having expectations can be particularly dissatisfying. An expectation comes with a benchmark that must be reached in order for satisfaction to be fulfilled. Hopes, desires, dreams, and expectations all involve wanting something that doesn't exist in the present moment, which can lead to feelings of dissatisfaction with the now. To release hopes, desires, dreams, and expectations is to let go of the internal state of wanting. This might seem to contradict lesson 14, which is hold the vision and let go of the plan, as lesson 14 is about holding on, and this lesson is about releasing, but they actually can work together. Let's say you want to find a life partner. That is a vision you hold, and you have a checklist of all the qualities you want that person to have. These are hopes, desires, dreams, and expectations. Go ahead and put together the checklist if that is what you want to do, but then release it. Holding on to it, comparing every potential candidate you meet with each point on your list creates a more critical approach, one that might not be pleasant for either of you. You could also end up missing out on meeting someone with whom you are well matched because they don't look like you expected, don't have the qualities you were hoping for, but they have other characteristics you hadn't thought of. Holding on to your hopes, desires, dreams, and expectations can create internal stress as you attempt to make the external environment fit what you want. And releasing hopes, desires, dreams, and expectations is a technique that can be used moment by moment. Several years ago, I planned to move back to Canada from New Zealand. I had sold everything, and my bags were packed. Then I met a man and fell in love, but there was a problem. He lived in New Zealand, and I was leaving. The more time we spent together, the more I wanted to be with him. Richard and I were in his backyard sitting by the fire pit. I watched as he mindfully broke branches and placed pieces of wood skillfully in a mound. He was creating a fire for us. I could feel my chest exploding with love for him. My thoughts shifted to my impending move, and suddenly my heart was aching. Tears filled my eyes. How could I walk away from this? This was the relationship I'd been dreaming of for such a long time. My fingers gripped the rock that I was sitting on. Feelings of dread filled my chest, and my forehead tightened with worry. Not a good start to what was supposed to be a romantic and enjoyable evening. Then I remembered my new mantra. I closed my eyes and whispered, I release all hopes, desires, dreams, and expectations. My body relaxed immediately. I stopped agonizing inside and let go of pushing away and clutching at potential futures. All the tension and worry disappeared. Like magic, I could breathe more easily. I was present again. I opened my eyes. Richard was looking at me. I smiled and felt the warm flow in my heart again. In that moment, I was in love, and I was going to have a beautiful evening. What might stop you from releasing hopes, desires, dreams, and expectations? Fear of not getting what you want, or fear of losing what you already have, can keep you holding on. Fear can stop you, but it doesn't have to. What are the benefits of releasing all hopes, desires, dreams, and expectations? When I release all hopes, desires, dreams, and expectations, my inner state changes. I free myself from rejecting what is and grasping after what is not. I am present in this moment. When I am present, I have access to a more resourceful conscious state where I can make wiser, more empowered choices. My mind is more creative. I feel more joy, and options for action are more easily available. Then there's a little summary of that lesson, and then there's an exercise. And So the exercise is just outlined with all the steps to do this one. The purpose of this exercise is to guide you through the simple steps of practicing this technique in areas of your life that cause you suffering. Step 1, identify a situation in your life that you're not happy with. Step 2, bring that situation to mind and notice how you feel inside. Step 3, close your eyes. Focus on that situation and say the mantra out loud. I release all hopes, desires, dreams, and expectations. Say this a few times slowly so that you can feel each word as you say it. Step 4, keep your eyes closed and notice how you feel inside. Breathe slowly and deeply as you let the feelings come and sit with them for a few moments. Step 5, notice if it feels easier to release one aspect as compared with another. For example, maybe you feel resistance inside when you say, I release all hopes. And when you say the word, I release all expectations, it feels easier and you relax. Write down your observations and insights. Step 6, open your eyes. If it feels right, take action to step into the experience of having let go and being more present. And this action might be to simply enjoy the moment you are in, or it might be to complete a specific task. Step 7, repeat these steps as often as you like. So that's that book there. And so I chose self-publishing, and I just want to share with you a little bit about that over working with a publisher route, and they're both very valid. What I found as I researched both of them, and I went to one of those big events put on by Hay House, which they have the publishing arm and the self-publishing arm, and it was really, really well done. And then I spoke with other people who had gone both routes, and the main reasons were that firstly, I was in charge of the timeline. And so, like if you are having your book published by a publisher, they say when it gets published. And sometimes there's your book isn't the next one they've got ready to publish, so it could be another 2 years, even after you finished your book, before your book gets published with them. And so I didn't like that. I was finished my book, it was ready, I wanted it published. The other thing is I was in control of the content. And so I remember Katie sharing with me that, there were sometimes parts of her book that her publisher, wanted her to change or to rewrite or, just not include. And I thought, I don't want a publisher telling me, oh, no, don't write about past lives or, don't write. It's like, no, there's no part of my book that I want to have to rewrite because of, the publisher's opinion. And then the other aspect was that I'm not sure about this one. I mean, I retain full ownership then of my book, and I guess the other thing too is that you earn more money when you are self-publishing. However, what is good, and if a publisher did approach me, like if Hay House approached me, I would actually have them publish my book because their ability to expand and reach a larger market. I'm really happy to receive less money per book in that case, because it wouldn't be about the money. It would be about the expansion of my ability to get my word and the book, the message of the book. Because I realized that book actually has a message all independent of its own that just channeled through me. So I'm just very grateful to be able to share it. So it's worthwhile if you have a book to publish. Spend time interviewing people who have gone the publisher route and the benefits from that, and then people who have self-published and the benefits from that. The one thing, if you do self-published books can and sometimes have earned a reputation of not being very good quality. And, that's because when you go to a publisher, they've got, various editors who, they really, thoroughly go through your book. And I have read some self-published books, and I tend to agree with that. And so if you are self-publishing, that's why I recommend get yourself editors, like really good editors, and don't be so precious and attached to all the content that you think needs to go in there, and get yourself a really good writing coach. So yeah, this, my book that I've published, I am really, really proud of the quality of that. So just as we end here, just want to let you know my main work is as a coach. And so I work with women who are unique, different, who don't always fit in, and they don't always want to. Women who have maybe a message to share, a song to sing, they've got more potential that they want to express. But the thing is that there's something missing. So no matter how successful they've been, there's just something missing inside. So maybe they're feeling frustrated, kind of like a bit like a frustrated misfit, don't quite know where they fit. But whatever it is they're doing isn't touching their spirit, and that's what they're looking for. They're looking for something that's touching their spirit, maybe clarity on their purpose, or what they've come to do. And so I help women to set themselves free and to connect deeply with their purpose, and to be the creative, adventurous spirit that they truly are. And I've got some exciting events coming up for women. And so the next one is the Big Bang free event for women. And this is on the 19th of December, Eastern Time. This is an opportunity to debrief this huge year that we've had, and 2020, and to set really powerful intentions for 2021. So perfect timing. So we're all going to come together. We're going to have some fun, do a couple processes and debriefing, and setting and magnetizing our intentions for this coming year. And if you wanted to come to that, please, drop me a line, send me a message. I'll get you the link on Eventbrite so you can register. The other event that's coming up, it's in January. This one's also free for women, and it's called Live on Purpose. And this is a 90-minute course, and it is about clarifying and crafting your life purpose. So if you want to come to that, let me know. I'll send you we're just creating now the web page for that. And, so you got to get me a message or put something below, and I will let you know. And then what we have coming up, I am launching at the end of January. So you're the first to hear this. I am launching once again the 6-week course called Love Yourself to Pieces. And that's starting at the end of January. That is seductively, reasonably priced just for you, $99 Canadian. And that's live with me 6 weeks. And that fills up quickly. All right. So as soon as I open that, it's not open just yet, but it's coming. So if you want to be on the waiting list for that, then drop me a note, and I'll send you the info. So thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being here with me. If you're on the replay, say hello. I'm reading the lovely messages of thank you and thank you. Awesome. Mwah! Love you heaps, and I look forward to connecting with you again. Bye.